Welcome to the Holy Land in this biblical site of Shiloh. There are many, many tremendous, unique sites in Israel. This is ranked among the top. Some special things happen here. Right here you can see behind me is where the Tabernacle resided for 369 years after the Israelites conquered the land, and this is where they set up the Tabernacle. Well, here we are on the way to Tel Shiloh, and we've come across all these soldiers here that are headed out, going up there as well. Set up the Tabernacle, and they put doors on it, and it kind of became somewhat permanent. Well, here we are just right down by the actual Tabernacle. It's just amazing to think about Samuel being raised here, Eli being here, Joshua being here. It's just unbelievable. So you can kind of see this is the actual spot the Tabernacle was for 369 years. It was destroyed by the Philistines at the end of Eli's life because of the wickedness of his sons and what was happening in the nation of Israel. So we're going to be looking at some rich things that happened right here in Shiloh. This is the place that the Tabernacle resided for 369 years. So Shiloh was the town in the lot of Ephraim where Israel assembled under Joshua at the close of the war of conquest, is found in Joshua 18:1. So it's right here that they met and the land was divided. Here the Torah territory, as we mentioned, was allotted to the 7 tribes who had not yet received their portions, and commission was sent out to describe the land into 7 portions, and having been done, the inheritances were assigned by lot. So right here is where the 7 tribes, some of the tribes received their portion on the east side of the Jordan, but this here is where the rest of the land was divided up here. Here also were assigned to the Levites their cities and the territories of the various tribes, as recounted in Joshua 18 through 21. So the Levites received their portions here as well. From Shiloh, Reuben and Gad departed for their homes east of the Jordan, and there the tribes gathered for war against these 2, having misunderstood their building of the great altar in the Jordan Valley, as noted in Joshua 22. So from here, when the several of the tribes went back, the 2.5 tribes went back on the east side, they built this altar, and so the rest of the tribes thought that they were misleading the people, that they were falling away from the Lord, so they went there and were going to fight, but then they had a reconciliatory meeting and everything smoothed out, but it was from right here. In Judges 18:31, we learned that in the period of the Judges, the house of God was in Shiloh. But from here, then it was moved to Gilgal, under apparently Saul had it moved to Gilgal. And here the maids of Shiloh were captured by the Benjamites on the occasion of a feast while dancing in the vineyards. This having been planned by the other tribes to provide the Benjamites with wives because of their disobedience. So you recall how the Benjaminite tribe was almost wiped out, but it was here in the vineyards, and this area is where they danced, and they were grabbed by other men, and that preserved the line of Benjamin. So right here at this place in Shiloh was the place where the Israelites would all gather, where they would come together to worship the Lord, offer sacrifices right here in Shiloh. Right below us is where the original tabernacle was. So the sanctuary was presided over by Eli and his wicked sons, and through Samuel the doom of their house was announced. So if you recall, Samuel had the visions in the night. The Lord spoke to him and pronounced judgment upon the house of Eli because of the wickedness of Eli and Phinehas. Eli, the high priest, did nothing about it to really stop it, caused Israel to sin greatly, so God pronounced judgment. So that's when the tabernacle then was destroyed. So the capture of the ark by the Philistines was the fall of Hophni and Phinehas. They lost their lives in battle, and then Eli as well. And the sanctuary in Shiloh here is called a temple, as noted in 1 Samuel 1:9 and 3:3. So it had doorposts and doors, as seen in 1 Samuel 1:9 and 3:15. So it was therefore a more durable structure. So once again, it was here for 369 years. So it was a tabernacle that was movable, but then here it became more permanent. And as I say, resided here for 369 years, roughly. And so it had doors, and it was more permanent until it was destroyed by the Philistines, and then later new one was set up. So the disaster that fell Shiloh, while we have no record of its actual occurrence, made a deep impression on the popular mind, so that the prophets could use it as an effective illustration of its destruction because of its inhabitants' disobedience to God. So here's just a couple verses that speak about that. So because of its destruction, not just of the tabernacle, but later the town of Shiloh was destroyed. It appears for disobedience and sin, because later on many of the prophets, Jeremiah and the different prophets, will use Shiloh as a means of talking about God's wrath. So in Psalm 78:59 it says, "When God heard, he was full of wrath, and he utterly rejected Israel. He forsook his dwelling at Shiloh, the tent where he dwelt among mankind, and delivered his power to captivity, his glory to the hand of the foe." So also in Jeremiah 7:12 it says, "Go now to my place that was in Shiloh, where I made my name dwell at first, and see what I did to it because of the evil of my people Israel." So once again, not only was the tabernacle then destroyed by the Philistines, but then later on, there's no record of it in Scripture, but later on, biblically, it was destroyed because there's reference to its destruction because of its evil. So now we also know that we have a beautiful, phenomenal story that takes place here, where we have Hannah, who comes to pray, who weeps at the front of the altar, and where Eli the priest comes out and says, "Why are you weeping?" Hannah says, I long for a child. I long for a child, and if I have one, I will dedicate him to the Lord. Eli says, "Go, and within a year you're going to have a child." So Hannah does have a child. She names him Samuel, who became one of the greatest prophets and leaders of Israel in his time. And anyway, she had that young that baby. He grew up just a little bit, and she brought him back and dedicated him right here at Shiloh, at this temple, there at this tabernacle, and she dedicated him to the Lord. Samuel was raised right here. He was raised right here in this tabernacle by Eli, and he grows up to be a great man of God that leads many in the path of righteousness, helps Israel to be restored and turned back to God. Samuel planted the seeds that really launched Israel to come into its greatness. After him, then there would be succeeding kings, and then of course David, who reigned and led Israel in greatness. So absolutely amazing things that happened right here in Shiloh. This is where God first dwelt in a permanent place in this land. So let's just review a couple things and observe a couple things about this place. It was a key meeting place during the early years of Israel's history. So Joshua gathered the people here together. It was their spiritual center. The land was divided right here. So it was the most permanent place when they came back into the land. And at Shiloh, Hannah prayed for a son, and God heard her prayers and blessed her with a young man named Samuel. To Shiloh, Samuel was brought and was consecrated to God's service. And the sanctuary at Shiloh is called a temple and had doorposts and doors, and it was therefore a more durable structure than the old tent or the portable tabernacle. And we have no record of its disaster, of the befall of Shiloh, but it's used in Scripture to refer back to God's punishment on a disobedient people. So here we are once again in Shiloh, and when we're looking right at the exact place there, it's indisputable that this is the biblical Shiloh, and it's indisputable that right there is the temple, or pardon me, the tabernacle that was more permanent, that was here for around 369 years, and all of these rich events that took place in Scripture happened right here in Shiloh. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and God bless.